Wing It Podcast, goosedigital.com. Who do we have?
Chris O'Neill.
Kevin Butler. I think it's 104, 105.
Michael Turksani. Yeah, we might be off there on episode of 2, but we're getting rolling, so we're happy about that. Coming off the back of our sailing and scaling podcast.
Yes, indeed.
Which was really nice.
Yep.
On Lake Simcoe with Chris Adams and his boat called.
It's All Good.
It's All Good, yes. When he said It's All Good the first time, I was like, oh, and then I didn't realize it was the name of the boat, so that's great. We're going to build on that today with more content around our founders and funders vertical that we're calling. So maybe to start that off, let's talk a little bit about what we even mean by that, founders and funders, and maybe I'll turn it over to you, Chris, to kick us off in that direction.
Great, thanks, Mike. Yeah, so founders and funders, as it sounds, it's all about helping founders, early stage startups, and their funding partners to drive growth in their agencies / organizations that drive marketing solutions, that drive SaaS solutions. Helping them find their market, sell into their market, and drive revenue.
I like that call out. I think growth, like the literal or obvious explanation would be more revenue, but I think behind that layer of the onion is, well, growing of opportunities, growing of momentum in terms of taking marketing and actually creating value from it, and even sales processes where it's momentum on a growing sales team that can absorb more of the sales cycles, more of the sales, and kind of extract out of just a founder-led mission. So I think growth is the name of the game across a variety of different functions within a go-to-market.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, I think the times, and we'll get into like setting the stage for 2025, why we think, the game has changed. And I think it hits home for this market because, traditionally, I guess if you want to say that over the last 10, 15 years, the capital's been flowing and there's been a lot of opportunity to sort of go build your business through investment, and we've benefited from that. These companies have picked up us as an agency, and we've helped them get going and had some very successful runs with organizations building their revenue operations. But at the same time, there's a lot more scrutiny now on the funds that are being raised and where we're going to put that funds and how we're going to ultimately generate the types of business outcomes that we want, and not just say leads or MQLs, which we've seen from a lot of these marketing teams as sort of their benchmark. It's like, no, we need to drive either qualified pipeline or actual revenue. And that's a big shift, and I think that's been driven by the economy and how that's worked. But I also think it's been driven from kind of an awareness that these traditional, if you want to call it that, or the last 10, 15 years, spray and pray type mass engines of lead that don't really go very far. Mm-hmm. That's not really working. It's certainly not working in 2025, and so I think that when we talk a little bit about what you should be doing, kind of that intelligent marketing approach that we're bringing to the table, just a different way to go about spending the money and growing the marketing function.
I think there's just been such a convergence of a ton of things in the last few years, especially whether it's emerging technologies from a marketing perspective. Like, you no longer need a 6-figure marketing stack in order to distribute your messages and get through to your target audiences. And then on the flip side, the kind of technology coming out in the form of like your competitors or semi-competitors, and how that's enabled rapid adoption, quicker go-to-market, and then there's pressure on the VC side wanting to see returns quicker.
Right.
So it's a double-edged sword, but like you can move so much faster now and mobilize a pretty significant base much quicker than ever before.
Feels like years ago that it was that sort of spray and pray model where, I think one of our customers called it land grab, if you remember that. The land grab was around investing enough in your outreach, whether it was Google paid or LinkedIn paid or whatever, to basically be the first one there for that search. And then you would sort of drive into that marketplace with the most sort of momentum. Now the scrutiny that is around that spend does not allow that.
Right.
Plus, the changes to the Google logarithm and so forth makes it almost impossible. If you did want to do that, makes it extremely difficult. So,
well, not to mention the emergence of technology, like we're already seeing cannibalization going on in Google search with respect to AI searches. So everything's continuing to shift again as far as how you would approach that.
right, yeah,
Yeah, and I think call it, the spray and pray or just doing, 1,000 different things. I think, you kind of got into that trap where, if we're doing, 1,000 things and we're doing the same 1,000 things that every other tech company's doing, we're kind of ticking the boxes. And hopefully that means that something's going to come out of this, right? We're going to do every single event in our industry. We're going to run a bunch of webinars. We're going to run all the Google and it was just kind of like, there was more of that, like, we have to be doing all these things in order to feel like we're marketing. And now it's like, well, we actually don't have the funds to do all those things at once. So what things actually are going to move the needle, start to scrutinize those. And I think that becomes very challenging, because we talked about here is that distribution, the good thing about nowadays is that the distribution costs have come down. That doesn't mean you want to be going at it and not doing it from a you call it a professional way. Even this podcast, you might say, well, it's an audio podcast, but to distribute it, to do that well from a professional point of view, well, we want the video podcast. We want 5 or 6 clips that are, fit for LinkedIn's engine that we can upload directly. We want maybe 5 or 6 clips that are landscape or portrait mode that we want to use on Instagram's engine. So now we got that dynamic. We want to get a blog out of it. Like, all of a sudden, like, what was a very kind of straightforward exercise of getting a podcast together, it's created this, like, well, geez, there's a lot to this production all of a sudden. Mm-hmm. But the good news is, through those tools that you talked about, and a lot of that technology coming down in cost, you can do that professional distribution for a lot less money. And there's always this, like, fight between brand and content and, like, strategy and distribution, like, who's going to get the money. And traditionally it's been hoarded by the content and creative, where, hey, we'll give you that one video, and it's like, well, that one video isn't enough, right? We have to cut it up. We need like 8 or 9 assets now. So there needs to be this, like, balancing act from the budget side. But the good news is that has come down in cost, right? So it's more about picking, well, what do you think the things that are really going to make a difference in your audience, and testing out those messages. Because even though the distribution is, call it, more reasonably priced than it was years ago in some cases, we still don't know what's going to resonate. If you're a new business, and you're trying to attach yourself to your target audience, we don't know what's going to work.
But to that point, and we talked about this in a previous podcast, is your ability to get data points to see if these things are working is so much quicker too. Yeah. And before, call it 10, 15 years ago, you've got to go come up with this message, takes forever to build, and then you've got to wait probably a minimum of 2 quarters before you can start to see, is this working or not?
Right.
Oh, it's not, okay, now we got to pivot, we've lost a half year. Now I feel like you can start to get little signals and signs, perhaps in as much as a week or 2, depending on your audience size and the scale of the data you're pulling in. But that's amazing to know that much quicker. Are you gaining traction or not? If you have to pivot, you haven't even lost the quarter yet.
Yeah.
Versus a whole half year.
So let's talk about kind of the founder-led question here. Is founder-led growth dead, or is it just getting started? Let's talk about, a lot of these organizations that we're talking about today, they're probably have grown and or are continuing to grow on the back of the founder.
Yeah.
So how do we look at that? Chris, you want to take that first?
Yeah, so obviously founders are the best at getting their message across. Like, they are, no doubt, 100%, no questions asked, the best at sort of describing the use cases, at delivering the language around the product that they have. And it's oftentimes very, very challenging to wrest that from a founder. And understandably, because they've put their blood, sweat, and tears into this thing for years, and they are so committed to it and so understanding of the value to their customers that very very easily you could say that the ideal world is clone them and sort of throw a few of them out there. The thing about like when is it the right time to to grow and expand, and what would that growth and expand look like? That's sometimes that's the maze that we have, is like what is the sort of the right time to kind of move on and grow, and what does that first step look like? Is it putting in a platform to kind of manage that data that's coming in? You might have some marketing, you might have some sales conversations and some pipeline going on. When's the right time to kind of invest in that platform, or even invest in another person to kind of take some of those conversations off?
I'd like to jump in there. I think the person's really important, and in my mind, in an ideal world, the sooner you can do that, the better. And I think the important distinction here is the conflation between founder-led sales and founder-led evangelism. Because the founder, to your point, he or she lives and breathes this stuff. There's just no one, in all likelihood, 99% of companies at this stage, that is that passionate, that knowledgeable about the solutions, the industry, the challenges going on, and even a vision for where they think it's going, than the founder, he or herself. And I think as a result, you don't want to stop that. In fact, you want to double down on that person and their ability to communicate that. That's really going to be the heart or source of your content and direction. And there's emerging data coming out that's suggesting more and more organizations are buying because of thought leadership, and not just because you are theoretically the market leader. So that's interesting too. But the important part about ripping out the founder from the sales-led motion is that if you're going to hire a sales leader to go manage that, they're going to put in structure that makes sense, that can scale out, not stuff that's sort of in the founder's head that only he or she can do. And the earlier you can do that, the more viable of a sales process you'll have. Right. We've worked with organizations where the founder still leads and is very much the sales motion going over a decade, and it's so hard to extract and pry and remove them from it. They've become so integral to the process that like the building falls down without them. Mm-hmm. So the earlier you can do it, the better in my mind.
Yeah, and it's a painful process, having done it here, past companies,
painful for everyone, by the way.
Well, it's painful for everyone, yeah, because then this, the sales organization wants to close deals, and what you're doing is you're letting them try, and you don't really know if the tools that you've given them are 100%. They're not battle tested, so to speak. So they're also going through that process. And then just speaking to that in terms of hiring a sales leader, I mean, we've seen this, right? You can have a rock star come off of a organization that's growing fast, and they do very well. They over subscribe their quota all the time. They're great at what they're doing, but they're inside of an organization that has that momentum. Right. And then they maybe join a smaller firm and they're trying to get things going, and it's like, whoa, this is like a real gap now. Like we don't have the same, not even the tool set, just the product market fit messaging side of it that, right. Trying to really wrestle that. So now that individual is not as successful, right? And the founders have to give them time and also be self-aware enough to say like, look, yeah, I might be in a deal to your point, but what I do in a deal isn't scalable and it's not practical, and there's too many pivots. So how do we break that down into something that, whether it's a package or it's a scenario or it's a questionnaire or something, that we can start to peel off these layers into other people that can start to contribute to deals, right? And that's really difficult. We went through that here, and I think we've done pretty well at that. I think we can always do better, but that process, and I think as it relates to the funders, they do notice this, right? If you're if you're investing in an organization, or if you are an investor and you're looking into it, surely you're going to be asking those same questions. Right. Chris is doing every single deal here as the founder of this company. He seems to be the only one that can really you, to your point, not only evangelize the business but actually close the business, like that's a risk and that's not scalable. And if you haven't gone through that process, then that'll be a major lift. So when we talk about marketing and rev ops, it's like, you know, that's where you don't want to be pushing too far ahead of your skis, so to speak, before you've got the ability to scale up your sales organization, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other points you guys want to bring up on that?
I guess the only thing there that I wanted to talk about is the, you know, that juncture at which point, you know, kind of do you need to kind of bring in that you know, that platform to manage the stuff. I think in some cases and again, like I think do we think that we brought it, when we say early, brought in a platform, Salesforce brought it in early. I think for a lot of people who would say yes, brought in that platform early. Like were we driving the amount of revenue every single month that sort of demanded that we put that system in place? I would say maybe not. But why did we do that? We did that because we anticipated that we would want to know some things about the patterns around sales that would, you know, give us the indicators that we needed, so that we had our deal stages and we saw where deals were falling off. We were able to analyze that. Whereas if you're just doing like a one-man show, or even if you've got some agents that are kind of like assisting and sort of driving that, but no actual kind of like, you've got, you know, kind of like anecdotal kind of like an understanding of what's going on. But if you don't have the data, then how is, you know, to your point, the funders, how are they going to look at that?
Yeah,
are you gonna be able to sort of describe to the level that they need to understand how your sales process, how your process of understanding your audience?
Actually, I think that's a really good point. I mean, maybe you want to build on that, Kev, just in terms of I think how, you know, positioning your business through a CRM, whether you're closing lots of business right now or not, how that does play a role in being able to articulate, you know, opportunity to a funder.
Well, so there's a few different angles, I think. I'll get into some of the data side in a moment, but one of the other key things that you hit on is any CRM forces a bit of structure, which isn't a bad thing either. It forces you to ask, well, what do we recognize as an opportunity versus not quite yet? And what are these different stages of an opportunity that goes from like, it's getting close and now it's really forecastable and things like that, right? Like, and of course there's lots of nuance there, but I think that is a bit of a forcing factor that if you don't have a CRM, then you're kind of just like winging it with a bit of sort of know-how and process in the background. When we talk about scale, that will not scale, of course, right? But then the actual data that one can extract from a CRM becomes really crucial too. For one thing, it's how do you go and position if you are in fundraising mode? How long are your sales cycles? Do you actually know? And does the value of the deal size change how long it takes to close those deals if you're going up market or whatever, right? But I think the other thing too is it's not just about that particular fundraising round. What about like the next one, and what about the check-ins with your investors? Do they want to see that in all likelihood you're getting better at closing deals with more velocity, just quicker sales cycles? We're theoretically getting better at this go-to-market. We're understanding how to be more nimble and efficient in the sales cycles, and or we're reading signals better, more clearly to understand what's really ready for sales to be able to move quicker. So I think all of this is going to come from a foundation of a CRM that's reasonably set up to actually pull data on things like this.
Sure.
Yeah, if you have, you know, even if you're not closing, you know, every deal, or your close rates are lower than, you know, even what you'd expect out of your industry or whatever, having those opportunities within the CRM, to your point, actually gives you all this other intelligence. If you're like, look, we're going out at this price and this is how we're configuring, and we've just done 80 pipeline opportunities and they've been quoted this way, and now we're seeing a world where we're only closing 5% of these deals, it allows you to ask those questions. Well, wait a sec, is our pricing actually out to lunch? Do we have, you know, a timing to get a quote out issue? Is it that product market fit? You know, what is going on? So I think, you know, not having that, and you're down to a spreadsheet, and when was the last time we this and that, becomes very challenging. So I think to your point, you know, CRMs have come down. in cost.
In cost, yeah.
You
yeah.
can get into, something like a HubSpot CRM at a reasonable price point, right? And I think the one pushback that you're going to get from a smaller organization, especially when it's founder-led or founder-led sales, is going to be, how do we keep this thing updated, right? Is it just the tool that he or she wants everybody else to use, or is it actually going to be used by the primary sales individual? And that's very difficult, right? It's a huge commitment on these, to get these systems, to get the data that you want out of them. So that's interesting, but I do think that if we're talking about scaling up, I think the sooner the better. The earlier you can afford, even if it's throwing the smaller customers or the smaller deals off to, a sales organization or even your first sales leader to start to build that capability, the better, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And to the point about the cost, it used to be, and we use Salesforce, and there's it's a great product. For a lot of founders, that product is just the pricing is a little bit intimidating, and I understandably. But I can tell you that there are alternatives in the marketplace that are very functional and not expensive, and a great place to start.
I totally agree with that, and they'll last you a long time, if not indefinitely.
Yeah.
And that was part of the comment before around this new age technology, these modern CRMs, for example, they are so cost effective. Yeah. In some cases, some of it is free if you look at HubSpot, right? There's still a world and a place for Salesforce. I feel like I'm married to Salesforce. Everything in terms of a sales process, I think Salesforce first, just for how it works. But there's no denying there's so many other equally good, possibly better for your organization, viable solutions out there. So those barriers of old, I don't think exist today.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't even talked about the intelligent marketing stuff much. I think we can get a little bit into that. We have been exploring how to leverage AI, in our marketing and particularly in strategies, but also in the sales process. We've got, custom gems created for creating proposals, and we've started to explore how that could work, writing SOWs. And I think even to the extent that this is kind of another angle of being able to test your own go-to-market strategy and throw into the system, the founders, what's in the founder's head, and this is how I do deals, this is what my deals look like, and try to test that out against the AI to see, okay, what would you see come back? Are you going to find that we do see some holes here, and we would need to change things in order to scale up a team around it? That's really interesting as well. And I think, the whole intelligent marketing came about because of the shift in sort of the demands of capital, the capital constraints and just the scrutiny that we're under, but also just from our own philosophy over the years of being an automation company, which implies that you're leveraging data, you're always looking at being more efficient. And now with AI, that sort of builds on it to be if we're going to go against a marketing strategy, let's do it. Let's take the best of the last 10, 15 years, cut out a lot of the costs, and be able to your point, Kev, earlier, it was how do we do this quickly, right? Where we can start to iterate and test and grow without being left behind.
I think so. For our particular organization, we're pretty sophisticated in our sales motion. Our founder is not involved in 95% of the deals, which I think is a great sign. And we have probably 8, maybe 9 individuals who can scope, quote, and deliver proposals for signature independently of one another, which is important too. Some of that will range based on the complexity of the deal, the size of the deal, things like that. We have sort of checks and balances in place if they're larger and a bit more strategic, things like that. But I think we're on about year 7, year 8 of this mission to be more efficient with our sales process. It's about that.
Yep.
And we're even down into the nitty gritties. If we look at, like you said earlier, time to proposal, how long does it take? What's the time between proposal sent and signature received? And just trying to tweak every nook and cranny of the sales process. But I think knowing what we know now and seeing where technology has gotten today, whereas it wasn't 7 years ago, we could do it at least 2 times as quickly now, I think. Maybe even like more.
Well, there's no doubt. I mean, again, just speaking for myself, the ability to kind of record a call, which you know, that's pretty recent, and for somebody like me, and again, like I know there's some younger sales reps out there that are very good keyboarders. I was a little bit late to the keyboard, and as a result, my note taking had to be after the call. So I had to take my notes, then I had to enter them into Salesforce later. So of course I was, you know,
I've got to say,
burning the midnight oil.
now we use
No longer needed.
we use the Google Suite for everything, for like meetings with Hangouts and Gmail and everything else. But those the follow-up meeting notes, we just have like, they're always being taken for every meeting. And the emails you receive now with the notes, there's like the highlights, there's the next steps, and then there's the full transcript. But those allow me to be so much more present in these meetings. Like I run all kinds of strategy sessions, and it, for me, historically, it's been a battle of like, how do I engage my customer? How do I get the information I need to get out? How do I have, like, frankly, an enjoyable conversation while also taking lots of notes?
Right.
Then I'd have someone come with me to help take notes so I could entertain and host. But even then, the notes wouldn't be so great because either they're not fully understanding the conversation, they can't keep up, like whatever. These notes now that come in are so incredible that they've become a staple in my process. But to your point, bringing it back to sales, it's either direct integrations or just a quick upload after into the CRM. Whatever AI capabilities your CRM has can do something with that on top of it.
Exactly.
But now all of a sudden you're not sitting there post-call for the next half an hour trying to make sense of the conversation you just had and transcribing it from memory. It's incredible.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, to the funders and founders, and I mean, like for everybody, this is like a huge game changer in terms of being able to kind of take the data from an exchange that you had, like live, and then, you know, being able to create a contextual presentation for a client. It's like all of a sudden you've gone from needing a whole bunch of additional, again, you've got to train these things. There's some training that has to take place to kind of get them working 100%, but it's like the tools are there to be able to take that information in, to improve all of the processes around sales. So for example, right now, if you were sort of bringing on a sales rep, you could actually take a look at what those exchanges are like, right? So you don't even have to do the old school kind of like role playing that we used to do just to see, okay, is this sales rep really asking the right questions, doing the right thing? You can sort of see, you share that information. So the compression of time that you have the ability to collect this information, make better and more informed decisions about what's happening in your sales funnel. It's massive. And
or even
then,
this, like I was just thinking, like, you know how like the old school way of doing it would be like sales leader brings on a new salesperson, lets them kind of figure their way out for, call it like a month or two kind of thing, and then they'll sit on a call or two, maybe 3, hear how it's going, and then make a decision. Is the sales rep running a good process, yes or no? But now I feel like you could just take full transcripts of this individual's first 12 calls, 15 calls, and you could ask AI, just what are the commonalities, where are the gaps, like what do you think could be improved? Like even that would give you a really interesting read, right?
Yeah.
Can you relabel our sales stages in Salesforce so that they make sense based on the conversations that are now happening?
The thing is, if you're a founder, you know, maybe you've got the time in the evening or whatever to kind of learn about all this stuff and how it all really comes together. But I think the advantage that we have in the intelligent marketing side is we're deploying these things right now. We know how to kind of use these technologies, make them work together so that the efficiencies are created and you're actually delivering the data into these places, which are then shareable, and then you can actually drive really good decisions.
I think for closing thoughts here, I mean, I think, you know, one of the things we had was sort of like how investor expectations are going to shift. And I think that one of the things that we've seen a lot would be building out your marketing team, right? We've raised the money, hire the people, right? And it makes sense. I mean, however, we have seen a shift where, okay, well, we want to have an agency as part of that equation, right? Let's hire a marketing manager, maybe a director, but we want to have the capabilities, the actual, the skill sets being delivered by the agency with some strategy support. I think that what we've seen is the turnover in marketing teams and the challenges to sort of retain those people, especially inside of founder and funder type environments where these are early stage organizations trying to get going, and depending on the mass or the brand or really what's going on, it's not easy to retain people. Like, it's there's sort of like other opportunities that could shift a little bit now with the employment landscape, but that doesn't change the fact that you are asking a team to really dig into your business and try to do one of the most difficult things out there, which is get the marketing outcomes or the marketing activities to produce business outcomes. It's not easy. It's like one of the most difficult things in business, right? So I think that part of the investor, my take on this for the investor expectations is really going to be, what capabilities do we have from a marketing agency perspective? Like, yes, we might need to get some level of leadership here, but how do we get the capabilities and to your point, Chris, someone that can snap those in, that's already up to speed on the latest and greatest, so they're not coming up to speed, and that we do have some continuity in the event that we love the marketing leader, but in the event that they decide to move on, right, that we've got, our program doesn't just grind to an absolute halt, right? Yeah. So we've got the best practices coming in, and we're also seeing some continuity. That'd be my investor prediction. What do you guys got?
Yeah.
Well, I think one, speed and agility is going to be easily the most important thing. I think like patience is probably at an all-time low, and not like in a negative way. It's just like the expectations are just so high now, right? I would imagine that like every VC is sending these like TechCrunch articles about how quickly so-and-so companies scaled to 100 million ARR inside of a year, and it's like, hey, why aren't we doing this, or some sort of equivalent of that, right? Because we know what's possible, and a lot of it's on the back of nimble teams and really efficient technology use driving a lot of it. So to that point, it's like, if I were either the founder or even the investors, I would be asking a key question as far as like the sales led and then sort of the go-to-market in general. Like, what, for your audience, for your business and vertical, what do you have internally that's like a must-have to keep inside the business, and what do you want to have as an external resource elsewhere? And that's where the agency can come in. But you're going to have that evangelist. You should have some sort of like sales leader. I think those are probably the two biggest ones. Maybe you have like I would call it like a creator role, someone who's capable of understanding the stories that are being told and being able to like cut it up into smaller bite-sized chunks for the distribution channels, and then the agency can go and deploy all of it. So I would think those are some of the important things too going on inside of these heads.
So many of the larger funding organizations are employing marketing and sales resources to drop into their to their investments. And not every investment firm or VC has the resources to be able to do that. And but again, it can be something that's sorely missed when a VC is looking at some results over the past quarter in one of their investments. They're having to look at a spreadsheet, trying to understand what that spreadsheet means. Again, these are very smart people. Investment bankers and VCs are super smart, but they're not in the business every day. They're having to interpret something on a spreadsheet that is at best kind of like very much a whiff of what's happening. And I think the data and being able to actually sort of drive really useful data about pipeline, about engagement, about audience management, that's going to be the thing that's going to help a VC understand that. So I think that data is going to be the thing that makes the difference for founders and funders going forward.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, I think we'll we're going to continue this series on this topic, so we can build off of this. Where we've got the Reignite event
September 18th to 20th.
September 18th to 20th. So we expect to see a lot of founders and funders out at that event.
They'll be out there.
Last year.
Yep.
And I think we got our new website coming up a couple weeks. It's looking really solid.
Now, on a previous podcast, we committed to, I think we said mid to late August. Is that
Yeah,
what
so
we
we're
said?
going to be tight. We're going to be tight, but not
Right on track.
Not too bad. Not too bad. Yeah, so then that'll also build on a lot of these themes. Obviously, and the intelligent marketing being a big one, as well as some of these verticals that we're really supporting right now. And yeah, I guess until next time,